Hey, Crystal Maiden here, and this is Sonic 4 Episode 1. This is another game that I really didn't think that I would like. But well, I guess I should have seen it coming that I would find it to be mostly enjoyable and experience. Because honestly, finding out that I liked Advance 3 when I finally gave it a chance really opened my eyes. I came into that game with rock bottom expectations. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just easily impressed. But I like this, This game had this huge controversy at first because it doesn't have the controls of the classic Sonic games. When you go into ball form, you slow down for some reason. They're basically just using the Rush engine. And it's a cheap downloadable title, so... I think the biggest problem with this game is that it shouldn't have been called Sonic 4. Like, that was just a cheap marketing ploy that there was only a decision they made later. It's mainly about the homing attack, really. And the air dash. The best way to gain speed is actually to constantly air dash. Although that brings me to another problem where, once again, you're constantly stuck on the center of the camera. I don't know what it is about 2D Sonic games deciding that's a great idea. Especially since you're running forwards at fast speed. So you're a lot more likely to just slam into enemies that suddenly appear on the right side of you. Especially when you're flung upwards, and suddenly you're expected to do a homing attack chain, but then it just suddenly appears, and you better hope you're in ball form when that happens. But you usually can't be because, and this is the biggest problem with the physics to me, you uncurl from ball form, even if you were in ball form earlier, if you get flung off the slope. And that really sucks because it means you slam into enemies. The physics are kind of weird, but, they're not bad, they're just different. I don't really find this game to be a terrible thing to control. Like, you stop going right the instant you hold right, but honestly, I just find that to be great for precise platforming. Like, you don't overshoot the platforms constantly. Like, that was a pretty fun level. Unfortunately, this is not. The special stages in this game are really awkward for multiple reasons. You rotate the special stage itself, and this means that just trying to precisely follow through rings is a gigantic pain in the ass. The problem is that you go too far to left or right when just so much as tapping it in any direction. The controls for rotating these things are so sensitive. I do like how there are arrows pointing you exactly where you need to go, but these bumpers! You're going to learn to hate these bumpers when they constantly start sending you into goal rings. And the thing is, you can't actually pause at any moment and retry these special stages. But the problem is that sometimes you get suddenly flung into a red sphere so fast that you don't really have time to react to it and hit the retry. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to retry it, But yeah, like the first emerald is pretty easy. The stupid thing about the special stages is that you need to get rings to progress, and there's a time limit. I don't know why they decided to put those arbitrary limitations in. Like, it's not fair to force you to collect a whole bunch of rings to progress when you've got these kind of controls. You press A and you just shake it, you shake the stage, and Sonic goes upwards a little. I don't feel like it's as good of a jump as in... Like, at least the special stages are actually playable, at least you can beat all of them, unlike in Sonic 1. Plus, it's a lot more convenient because you can choose any stage at any time you want. So, it's not like you're forced to progress from one level to the next, and you have to... Like, it's not like in, say, Sonic Pocket Adventure, where you have only a limited amount of chances to get all the emeralds. You have an infinite amount of chances. You'll just have to replay levels if you screw up. But yeah, this is basically a nostalgia trip, but kind of done in an aimless way. Like, bullshit! You just get sunk. I hate it when that happens. But yeah, I like how every level in this game, every act, has its own gimmick. I really like that because it makes every act feel very unique and memorable. And it does a lot to make up for the fact that I hate that enemy. But yeah, like, the gimmicks do a lot to make up for the fact that there's only 4 zones in the game. Like, those 4 zones that you saw that you can play at any time, they're basically the only zones this game has. Again, it was meant as a cheap downloadable title. So, it would be kind of underwhelming. So, it makes sense to me that they would have these gimmicks. And like every 2D Sonic game has gimmicks in its level, let's be real. It's just a natural way to distinguish every level from each other. Basically, you hold left and right, and that's how you swing on the vines. And you got to make sure that they're swinging pretty far, because otherwise you won't jump very far on them. Something really annoying about the homing attack in, well, every Sonic game, but it's especially noticeable in this one. If you're too high above an enemy, even though the targeting reticule's on it, there's a chance you might not actually hit it and set air dash to your doom. And that's really going to become obvious later in the game. But yeah, that was a pretty fun level. Now we get to, well, this has got to be a tribute to Sunset Hill Zone Advance 3. And what better way to tribute Advance 3 by having cheap enemy placement galore? There's cheap enemies, and it's very easy to run into them. Which means it's not exactly fun having to replay this level to get all the Chaos Emeralds. Because if you don't beat it with 50 rings, then that's just what you're gonna have to do. I hate those enemies that they're in the walls, like it's Metropolis Zone, and you have the starfish enemies in there. Like, I don't think they should do that in the first level in the game. Not to mention the green missiles that, again, you're on a center's camera at all times, so they're pretty much guaranteed to slam into you all of a sudden. I mean, I love how this takes place at sunset. It's very unique for a zone to change the time of day when you get to a different act. And it looks really pretty. But yeah, as I demonstrated there, you kind of slow down when you're in ball form, so you're better off just running whenever possible. Like, it's pretty different from the classic Sonic games. But I came into this game knowing exactly what to expect. Why? Because I homing attacked that hangar twice. I think you have to have momentum in order to go far and fast with them right away. Like that's the weird thing, is a lot of people say that this game has no momentum, and that's true, but it decides to have momentum when it inconveniences you, especially in the gimmicks. Like, this is a game where you go to the left, or you go to the right, only when you tell the game to do it. But but often an exception is made for when you get gimmicks, like the hangar. Although the hangar isn't really a huge example of that. The hangar is fine, it's pretty harmless. Something I like about this game is that, even though it has no momentum, it does keep momentum perfectly when you're being launched between springs. Like, when you get launched from one diagonal spring to another, you don't stop going towards the spring and fall just because you didn't hold the right direction. And I love how you only have to rev up the spin dash once for it to get to its maximum speed. Yeah, see what I mean about those bumpers and red gold spheres? Needless to say, I do a lot of editing for this. Recognize this boss theme? That's right, this is the prototype version of the Sonic 3D Blast boss theme. Like, it's different instrumentation, obviously, but it's a nice development gag. You are going to learn to hate the boss theme, though. Especially when you have trouble with the bosses. This one is really easy, though. In fact, this is my favorite version of the ball and chain boss ever. Like, this boss is so easy because all you have to do is homing attack it, and you win. Although, like, it is annoying how he suddenly throws it at you. And, like, the way he moves around is so quick and so sudden that it's pretty easy to get caught off guard by it, and then it comes down on you. The green neutron badniks that you had to deal with a lot in the previous level. They launch themselves like missiles in this game, which is really annoying. It's something that only the blue neutrons used to do. But yeah, this is Casino Street Zone. You know, I like this. I like this theme. It's kind of forgettable though, but it is pleasant to listen to while you're hearing it. Like in general, the soundtrack, I don't hate it. It's got silly instrumentation that kind of makes you reluctant to like it. God, I hate that enemy! It's like you homing attack him, and no matter what you do, you can't get him to... Yeah, this is the best example of how strange the physics is. You're better off just running at the walls rather than just rolling to a ball, because you won't get the speed that way. But to be honest, the physics actually make this a lot better of a level because, see, when this stuff happens, you can just air dash and you'll have a lot easier time. Like, it's not like you're constantly trapped between those triangle things. You can just air dash mid-air and make it so that, like that. It was so much easier for me to get to that pinball flipper. And the bumpers don't seem nearly as annoying as they usually are. Like, I feel like it's a lot more predictable how they'll launch me. Like, it's a lot more likely that they'll launch me upwards. You still have these things. I've always hated these springs. Like look at how long it's taking me for me to get past this section. I feel like they launch you a little faster. Like, I guess maybe it's because they don't flash constantly, unlike the ones that originally appeared in Sonic 2. It never is intuitive for me that I can actually go into the slot machines from below. Like, for some reason it really feels like something that I can only go into from above. But yeah, this is a fun level. Like, again, because of the way the controls are, where you can just go left or right whenever you're holding left or right on the control pad, and only then. It feels like you're not constantly bounced around in directions you don't want to go most of the time. Like, even when you're sent in a direction you don't want to go, you can just air dash, and for the most part, you'll be fine. Something interesting to note is that in the second trailer of this game, in the 1992 section, prototype sprites were used when Sonic was running. Oh god, I hate these things. And I actually got crushed by one of these things. Like, it's pretty hard to die at this point in the game. Like, the first two levels, until we get to the end of Act 2 of this level, the game is pretty easy. But you can get crushed by those things, and I did in my first take of Act 2 of this level. I had to do a second take because, well, my controller is screwing up. Like, if you're hearing a disconnected sound during the first two parts of this LP, like especially during the first part, well, that's because I didn't realize at the time that it's better off to just put a red clip twist tie around the wire of the Xbox 360 Windows controller, and that way it'll make it so that the thing on the base of the wire, the bulging thing, it isn't blocked by anything. So that way, I basically solved my controller constantly disconnecting issue. At least I hope I did. It's not really giving me any trouble now, but yeah, so if you're hearing something get disconnected, that was my controller, and it picked that up in the audio for some reason. But now we got another special stage. Isn't that great, guys? I hate these things. They're so arbitrary. Like, why do you have to have a time limit? Why do you have to collect rings to progress with the kind of controls they have? The soundtrack, it sounds straight out of a children's lullaby, but to be honest, well, I guess it's fine. Like, in general, I think the soundtrack is fine. I mean, you're going to grow to hate the boss theme, as comical and goofy and thus suiting of Eggman as it is, but the main reason you'll grow to hate the boss theme is because you're gonna hate the bosses of this game after this zone. And so you associate the boss theme with the frustration. See you in the next part.